Good morning, it is 9:03 and you are listening to the Sandspur Hour. My name is Greg Golden.
And I'm Olivia Matthews.
And to start the show, we are joined with an intern from Winter with the Writers.
Hello, I'm Rachel Gonzalez.
And tell us a little bit about what that means, or even just what the program is.
Well, Winter with the Writers is a program in February where Rollins brings in writers every Thursday that are published authors or poets to speak with both students at Rollins and the whole Winter Park community, thanks to Carol Frost, who puts the program together.
And what's the process of interning like?
Interning is just kind of like putting things together, kind of figuring out about the author, doing presentations on them, and just making them happy in certain ways. It's a lot of fun.
And you also participate in the master classes?
Yes, I participated last week in the Simic master class. Charles Simic was here last week, and that was fun. You sit on stage and you have written out a poem and he talks about it, and he was very honest, which was a great thing for a master class to be like, not having them sugarcoat everything and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And have you attended some of the ones in the past?
I have. I've attended Carl Hyacin and Karen Russell. Those were both great master classes, great readings.
Good. And what, I guess maybe not what's your most anticipated author, but what are just a few of the authors who are to come?
Well, this week is going to be Justin Cronin, which is really exciting. He has the trilogy, The Passage, which the third one in the trilogy is coming out this spring, which is pretty exciting. And then also Laura Vandenberg, who I'm the most excited about because she writes short stories and she came from Rollins herself.
Mm-hmm. And what sort of writing do you do in general?
Oh, I'm all over the place. I don't really have like a certain specific area of writing I like. I like poetry, I like short stories. Someday I wish I could write a novel.
And what did Charles Simic bring that maybe you haven't seen before, or just what was his experience like, or the experience like of his reading?
Well, he's really interesting because he's been writing for so long, and he has such a diverse background. He comes from Europe. He came over here because of World War II, and just he's from all over the place, so he has all this experience that he puts into his writing.
Very cool. And what are the other writers who are coming, besides the two that you mentioned?
Madison Smart Bell and Alan Michael Parker.
And what do they bring to the table?
Well, they're both really interesting writers. Madison Smart Bell, he's great, a historical writer, and he writes about like the Haitian Revolution and all that stuff. And Alan Michael Parker, he's just a funny like poet and author. Like he's written novels and.
Very nice. Olivia, what are you curious about?
Oh, I was just wondering, what is your particular writing process for this class?
Well, usually for me, I have an idea and I just think about it for a long time and then finally write it down. So I've been writing, I have something due for Friday for the Laura Vandenberg workshop, which I'm excited about. And it's just get it down onto page from my head, and that takes quite some time.
Now, does everybody have to write everything for each writer, or do the interns pick and choose like who they want to have a master class with?
Well, on the first day of the semester, we each figure out which person we would most be suited to have a master class with. So we each get 2 writers that we can choose from. So I picked, of course, Charles Simic and Laura Vandenberg.
Cool.
And how do people find out more information about the upcoming events?
Well, we have a Facebook page, Winter with the Writers Literary Festival, and you can also check out the Winter with the Writers Rollins webpage, which has everything on it.
Great. And do you know when the next event is?
It's going to be on Thursday. We have a master class with Justin Cronin at 4 o'clock, and then a reading with Justin Cronin at 7:30.
Are those both in Bush Auditorium?
They're in Bush Auditorium, yes.
Great. All right. Then we look forward to those events, and we thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And we're back on the Sandspur Hour, here with you until 10 a.m. And guess who's here to join us? It's Amir.
Hey, sorry guys. Working on my thesis. And then I literally overslept. So, but I'm here. Yay.
Who'd you bring with you?
I also brought the lovely Sabrina Kent, who is Vice President of Spectrum. Would you like to say hello, Sabrina?
Hi, here I am.
Yay.
Thanks for the introduction.
Oh, as always.
And
We want to start, Greg? Or I got the questions. I'll do it. Okay. So we wanted to bring Sabrina on because there were a lot of issues that had LGBT-specific issues that have been going on over the last few weeks, and we wanted to kind of get her perspective and whatnot. And one of the big ones that we had actually recently talked about, two of them were Macklemore's performance at the Grammys, and also the kind of President Obama's actions at the Sochi Olympics, specifically with the LGBT community, having those specific advisors being brought there. And one of the first questions we wanted to ask is, do you feel like venues such as the Grammys or the Olympics are appropriate to make such political statements?
Well, there's been a lot of backlash, especially about the Grammys, and I have to say that it wasn't just gay couples that were getting married there. There were couples from all sort of walks of life, and I personally wasn't offended by it, but I know that there were a lot of people saying that this isn't the right place and time to be having these discussions. So, I don't see a big deal with it. I think the big thing, of course, with Sochi is safety. We know that horrible things are going on in Sochi, and the most important thing is ensuring the safety of everyone who's there. And if the president feels that he can, send his advisors out there and that they are in safe hands, then I'm gonna trust that that's the way it should be. But it's definitely the political climate there. I mean, it's definitely not a place that I would want to be as an LGBT person.
For sure. Talking about kind of the LGBT community in general, one of the things that is difficult, or I guess is an interesting aspect of that, is where kind of allies come into that. I know that's for some LGBT, it's a touchy subject because some feel like the allies are a very vital and important part of the community, and others feel like they aren't able to. It's very difficult for them to be really a part of the struggle because they aren't really living the struggle. Kind of maybe what is your opinion on an ally, and what is their role, and what does it mean to be a good ally?
So I think this is a point of contention for many people because it really just depends on who you talk to. I think that allies are a vital part of our movement, and they're so important. I mean, we can't get anywhere just shouting for ourselves and picketing on the side of the road. I always get pointed at as like that crazy activist lesbian, but then when there's a straight person on my side, it kind of, it adds a helping hand to the movement, and I don't think that we would be anywhere without our allies. We would definitely still be even more of a marginalized group, and not widely accepted as being part of a normal population, though we are. So I think allies are really important. And I think that, honestly, the role of an ally is to walk alongside LGBT individuals and to take on their own charge, to educate themselves about the issues, and to be a source of support and encouragement for LGBT people.
To maybe more so look locally at the issue, could you maybe talk about what's going on in Florida, specifically over the last few weeks when it's come to LGBT rights and the LGBT movement?
Yeah, so 6 couples have filed a lawsuit against the state of Florida for marriage equality. which is huge, and it's, definitely a huge step, especially since, we have the anti-same-sex marriage laws written into our Constitution. And I think that, once this gets up to the Supreme Court level, there's really no way that it can be avoided, that it is a violation, of the Constitution. So that's huge. And I think marriage is, it is a big issue, but I think there are so many more important things going on right now. Like, LGBT youth are 2 to 3 times more likely to commit suicide than their peers. And that's a big number when you think about less than 5% of the population identifies as LGBT. And then we have, staggering statistics that tell us that, close to 40% of LGBT youth are homeless, living on the streets, and that could be due to sexual abuse, that could be due to being rejected by family members. And to me, marriage is a very important issue, but there are things that I think are more pressing, like the safety of our youth and things of that nature. And so I would say that while it's important that we tackle the marriage issue, I think there are a lot of fundamental issues that people will turn their backs on after, marriage is won. And that actually scares me a lot, because there's horrible things going on.
Yeah, I feel like is actually kind of led into another question that I was going to bring up. I feel that marriage is an issue that's very much held as the big one when it comes to the LGBT community, but you have things like homelessness, or you have things like, very real youth issues, suicide, that kind of are, in some people's opinion, much more pressing than marriage. But it seems as though it's very difficult to tackle some of those outer issues, because then that goes into, more social issues, poverty, mental health, things of those nature. So how do you, with marriage being so, close to, not to be over presumptuous, but being achieved, how do we go forward and help fix those issues when it comes to, gay teens being kicked out of their families' homes or whatnot? And is it, changing society stigmas, or how do we help them?
That's a loaded question, because there's so much that we can do, but it just sort of, it seems like the issue sometimes, looking at it and trying to solve it from, like an activist perspective or political lens or a social lens, whatever way you want to come at the issue, it's hard, and it's definitely not something that can be done overnight. And I would say that, the biggest thing is education and just having honest face-to-face conversations with people. I think that that's the biggest way to change hearts and minds, and open eyes and things of that nature. And that's on the ground level the most basic thing you can do. And in Orlando we have the Zebra Coalition, which is a center for LGBT homeless youth, and it's one of 4 in the nation that actually caters specifically to the needs of LGBT homeless youth. And so they always are looking for volunteers and people to, join their street team and find youth off the streets and bring them into the drop-in center. So, there are efforts being made, but I think that it begins with the basic awareness that these things are going on, because, we get so clouded about these issues with marriage and, just the big mainstream LGBT issues, and we forget the most fundamental things, like we don't have a non-discrimination policy that includes sexual orientation and gender identity and expression in this state. And that means that I could be fired tomorrow if my boss didn't like the fact that I was gay. And so, it starts with education and just talking about the issues,
Okay. And actually that leads into my final question as to what are things people can do, whether at the local level, whether it be politically, or even students who are just interested in LGBT issues, to get involved and to learn more.
Yeah, well, for sure. There's this one resource that I use called the LGBT Smart Brief, and it's called the Gay Politics Report, and that always keeps me up to date with information, what's going on, when when those 6 couples decided that they were going to sue the state of Florida. That was like the first thing that came reeling through my inbox. So that's a good way to keep updated with what's going on. And then, there's organizations like Equality Florida that lobby for LGBT rights throughout the state. There's the Zebra Coalition that I just mentioned. There's, the center here in Orlando. So there are tons of outlets and resources, and all at the tip of your fingers on the internet. You can probably just type in LGBT Orlando and you would find a grand list of things.
Very cool, very cool. For those interested in joining Spectrum or going to a meeting, can you say all the day and time?
Yes, we meet Mondays at 5:15, except for this Monday we will be supporting a Sean Strub event, which is, he's an author and gay rights activist, and he'll be here at Rollins, I believe in 330 Winter Park Plaza, but don't quote me on that. But we meet every Monday at 5:15.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Sabrina.
So we're now joined with another guest, new record.
Yes, 3 in a day, 3 in the morning. It's quite awesome. We are joined by Amanda Herlick, who is the Vice President of NORML at UCF. NORML is the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. And today we have asked her to come on to talk a little bit about her organization, and specifically a special event that she and her organization will be hosting very soon. Thank you so much, Amanda, for coming on.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about kind of the aims of NORML and this event that you'll be having soon.
Yeah, for sure. NORML ECF is the largest college chapter of National NORML. We are a national organization. NORML ECF is looking towards bettering the pro-marijuana prohibition at the moment. We want to change the laws. We look at ourselves as a political activist. We're trying to legalize cannabis, not just as medicational, but also as recreational. At the moment, we're definitely focusing on medical because of the chance to vote on November 4th for medical marijuana in the state of Florida. So kind of what we're focusing on at the moment.
Very cool, very cool. And you have a specific speaker coming in soon.
Yes, we're very excited. The month of February, we celebrate Medical Marijuana Month. We have a guest speaker coming every Wednesday. Last week we had LV Musica, a federal patient. This coming week on Wednesday at 7 o'clock, we're going to have Dr. Mitch Earlywine. He has his PhD and professor of psychology. He is a professor at the State University of New York at Albany. He is also on the National NORML Board of Directors. He has over 100 studies out about addiction, and he has also a bunch of studies out on vaporization with cannabis and the lungs. So we're very, very excited to have Dr. Earlywine come out on Wednesday.
What's the organization's kind of to kind of have an event like this? It kind of seems like at a college campus people are like, oh, like they wouldn't really care so much, like, oh, marijuana, like totally, it's fine. But what is there an importance to still have organizations like NORML kind of within the community?
Yeah, for sure. We table outside campus Monday through Thursday, and we have people that come up to us, and some people are like, what, this is legal? You guys can be a college chapter? Like, this isn't even a thing? A lot of people don't fully know about cannabis yet, so it's important to have organizations like us to steer people in the right direction as far as the right information and the right knowledge to have on such an important topic. We like to make sure that everyone's informed, and I feel like that's our main purpose at NORML.
One of the big issues that's happened over the last year is the legalization of marijuana in Washington and Colorado. And Florida is starting to go in its own interesting steps. If maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yes, for sure. Florida, awesomely enough, passed the Kathy Jordan Medical Marijuana Act, and we're trying to pass that. And we also got a lot of support from John Morgan from Morgan & Morgan. He put a couple $1 million towards the campaign for Florida to push right now we're going for medical marijuana. On November 4th, it's an off-year election, so it's kind of a big deal to officially get the youth out because we're typically not the ones that show up for that election. But yeah, we are able to vote for medical cannabis on November 4th. It's going to be, like I said, the off-year election. We're going to have a chance to vote on if we want medical cannabis or not. It's going to be on the ballot. You can either vote yes or no, depending on, your stance on the issue. But it's definitely a great chance for Florida to, change the way people look at us. We are very much a Republican state. So getting medical cannabis would be amazing, not just for the patients, but for the legalization movement as a total.
I think, do you want to
Sure.
go for it, Greg?
Recently, President Obama has made comments about marijuana and its role in society. Do you feel like it's going to be easier for marijuana to get legalized at the state or the national level?
Honestly, I think it's going to be a little bit like alcohol prohibition was, where once each state individually decides to become legal or decrim or medical or anything of the sort, the federal government, I feel, will officially or eventually look at the states and say, wow, well, maybe we should take a stance because all these other states are doing it. So I think Florida is going to be a really big push of having the federal government look at it as being like a federal law, as not just like a state law.
Do you believe that it's an issue that it's not a if, it's when?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you would have asked me, 10 years ago if this was going to be a legalization thing, I would have said, maybe in the next 50 years. But once Colorado and Washington became legal, I mean, Colorado made, a couple $1 million in its first week of having sales in 2014. Like, that's amazing. I honestly do think it's a just when is it going to happen? Because once the states start making revenue, they start doing, tourism for, cannabis, and patients are going to start flocking to those states. And honestly, I think it's definitely just a matter of time.
I think the Colorado and Washington models are interesting. Washington is going to be rolling out their legalization process within the next few months, but Colorado already has gained massive amounts of revenue. The taxes on marijuana are quite high, but people are still flocking towards it. Many cannabis stores had sold out of product within the first few days. There seems to be a very high demand. Not only people really look at this issue as being very important because not only does the legalization of marijuana help the consumer by not throwing them in prison for these victimless crimes, but it really changes a long-held view on the war on drugs, especially when it comes to Latin America. Do you believe that the legalization of marijuana has benefits outside of just the United States?
For sure. The people, or a lot of other countries, look at the U.S. kind of as, a headliner. So I feel like honestly, a lot of other countries already have marijuana legalized. I mean, there's places in the world where all drugs are legalized. You know what I mean? And I think if the United States takes legalization seriously and we're able to, make it happen in a way that actually looks good upon us, and we don't just make it look like we're a bunch of quote-unquote potheads that are trying to get marijuana legal, I think other countries will definitely look at us and hopefully respect us a little bit more to allow a medication with, a bunch of medical benefits and no negative attributes. I would hope the other countries would look at us as I don't know, not a role model, because I feel like a lot of them already did this already. But, I hope they would look at us as, a positive thing.
So, Amanda, if people are interested in getting to learn more about NORML, about your events, just marijuana legalization in general, where can they go to contact you guys?
All right. Well, great question. On the 17th of February, we're having the Medical Marijuana Bash. It's happening at UCF in the Pegasus Ballroom. It's on the first floor of our student union. We're going to be there from 10 a.m. till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We invite everyone to come out and look around. We're going to have informational boards and games and face paint and, a bunch of fun things that are going to hopefully attract the masses. We really just want to educate everyone and get everyone's information and facts straight. You also can look on normal.ucf or normalucf.com, which is our website, or you can look at National NORML, which is normal.org. Great information and facts on there. We also have a Twitter and a Tumblr for NORML at UCF, and a Facebook, of course, as well. So any way of contacting us, I would say those are the main options. But definitely make sure you come out to the Medical Marijuana Bash on the 17th. So it's going to be a good time.
Well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming in, and we really hope people come out.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.